With the Boston Bruins being slow out of the gate to start the season, many insiders believe a big trade is coming and that the captain may be moved out of Boston at the deadline. And in this video, we're going to talk about the implications Brad Marchand leaving Boston would have on this team's future and where we think he will land if he does get traded here at the deadline. So you're not going to want to miss this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 91% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you're not subscribed already, I want to keep you up on the latest NHL news, rumors, everything that's happening around the league. Make sure you're down below and hit that subscribe button. But Darius, with that said, we just got to jump right into what Chris Johnston was reporting here today. It's a big quote, so if you want to pause the video and read it, definitely do so. But basically what he said here is Brad Marchand is a player that we did not get to see or not expect to see on this trade board so early on in the season. They say here he still has a lot to offer a team in his final year of his contract, where maybe he can go out, still be that pesky, get under your skin kind of playoff guy that one of these contending teams needs. And that, you know, where Boston is right now with getting a new coach in and where they are so far in the season, moving out their captain, moving out their veteran here would be a good move for them going forward. And Elliot Friedman did allude to as well that there have been some contract talks still about Marchand maybe getting an extension. He is at 36 years old, so you don't expect him to be playing too much longer. But they also say here that he would be a great asset to contending teams, especially come playoff time. But Darius, I mean, initial reaction to this with Brad Marchand being on the trade board, what are you thinking?
Well, it's very interesting. The captain of the Boston Bruins could potentially be on his way out of Boston, and not for a lack of trying. He's been a fantastic player for the Boston Bruins over the last how many ever seasons, right, since he's got there in Boston. Obviously made an impact winning the Stanley Cup in 2011. But I think it's very interesting. This is a player who can make an impact on any team in the league, I think, and especially a contender. This is a guy who can, he plays his best hockey in the playoffs. He knows the line. He rides the line of what's, allowed and what can't or will be called, right, in the playoffs. So he's great at that. I think that any team could benefit from having him. I think there's a couple suitors around the league that would love to have a player like this. And listen, the fact of the matter is, I think if you're a fan of any team that isn't the Boston Bruins, you saw this Bruins demise or whatever you want to call it, the downfall eventually coming. That being said, they are still at third in the Atlantic Division in a playoff spot, which is pretty crazy to think, but they have started this season very slow. So I think it could be time to start looking at, hey, you know what, maybe we could re-sign Brad Marchand next season, but before that, maybe we move off of him. Maybe we get some assets in return. We get a little bit younger because they still have, I think they have a big problem up the center as well. They don't have too many centermen there that can play big minutes and make an impact. So I think that's something that they got to look at. And listen, he makes $6 million, just above $6 million. It's very affordable for another team, especially if the Bruins retain. He could really help a lot of contending teams in the playoffs, and his contract expires at the end of this year. He'd be a pure rental. So pretty low risk, I think, for anyone who wants to acquire his services.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've kind of seen this demise of the Bruins come, like their days of Bergeron, Krejci were over, where we thought, maybe last year they were going to have a little bit of a downfall, but they just went out and surprised everybody. But we're kind of seeing the effects of this now with the aging team. Obviously, Pastrnak is still Pastrnak. He is playing unreal for this team this season. But when you have a 36-year-old Marchand with, some younger guys in your lineup, maybe trading him out, maybe trying to get a little bit younger here would be the best retool situation for this Boston Bruins team. I mean, I personally despise Brad Marchand as a player just because I'm a Habs fan. You're a Toronto fan. We love seeing the downfall of the Bruins, obviously. But, I mean, seeing, he's a player that you hate to play against, but he's a player you love to have on your team. So going out there, maybe taking a risk, maybe throwing in a second, maybe even first round pick to bring this guy on for a rental could really be a big help to these teams, where in the 7-game series, he's going to be one of those players that gets under the skin, draws a lot of penalties, because that's what he's good at, and that's why Boston are so successful in the playoffs, and there's no doubt about that. But so far this season, he hasn't had the hottest of starts. I mean, he has 17 points in 26 games, which isn't bad in my eyes. I still think, that's pretty good numbers for a 36-year-old player. 8 goals, 9 assists. I think, obviously this guy can pick it up a little bit, and I think maybe giving him a new home could be the answer to that. And when I think about where I want to see Brad Marchand land here in this trade, I gotta say, it's the Nashville Predators. I mean, the Nashville Predators right now are struggling with goal scoring, and they need somebody like Brad Marchand to help them out. I mean, they're already kind of a retirement home with all the old guys they got there, so why not go out and get yourself a 36-year-old Brad Marchand, throw caution to the wind, and just try to win a Stanley Cup. They have 10 million or 7 million in cap space, but the big thing here on the reason they could acquire him is they have 5 picks within the first and second round of this year's draft. So you throw a few picks at Boston, maybe you throw one of your top prospects, you get Brad Marchand in for your final push here at the end of the season to get into this playoffs and to try to win something for your franchise and for your organization. Definitely think it's a risk worth taking. And if you look at their lineup right now, you move Stamkos back to his natural position in that center role and put Brad Marchand on this second line with Stamkos, Marchand, and Marchand. Oh my God, I can't believe we're even thinking about this, because that would be probably the most lethal second line in the NHL. I mean, Darius, what do you think about a potential Brad Marchand move to the Nashville Predators?
I think Nashville's a very interesting choice. Like, maybe if you're looking at some playoff teams, yes, they could use Brad Marchand, but Nashville, I suspect that they're probably going to make the playoffs when it's all said and done. I think that they're going to continue to push and probably crawl themselves back into a playoff spot. Not that they ever were this season, but I think that they're just too good on paper to miss the playoffs. I think that they're going to figure it out. And if you add a guy like this, and listen, like, he can score. We know that he can score. We know everything that he brings and how good he is in the playoffs. But obviously, Nashville, or the Boston Bruins, I should say, sorry, are having trouble scoring this year. But if you were to put him on a more potent offense, which, Pasternak's still there in Boston, he's fantastic. But I think Nashville has a couple more weapons, like Steven Stamkos, for example. I think that he could probably flourish there as well. Brad Marchand, this is. And I think that the team could use a player like that. Maybe he even moves up to the first line there while in Nashville, right? So I think it's a very interesting prospect. They obviously can, take that risk. I think that they can absolutely take that risk at this point. They have 3 first-round picks this year, so they can absolutely make that trade. And I think that would certainly work for Boston, getting a first-round pick in return. But it's very interesting. I think that's a team to look out for. I think Nashville might want to wait before they make a trade like that, just to see where they are, maybe come January, February, heading into the trade deadline in March, just kind of get a better feel for, hey, are we going to make the playoffs here? Because maybe we won't make this trade. But I think if they are headed towards the playoffs, this is a player that absolutely they could probably use. And you know what? With Nashville, yes, they were slow out of the gate as well. But with everything they've put together here, if they get into the playoffs, watch out for that team. They have a lot of really good pieces.
Yeah, and I know a lot of Boston fans are probably saying to themselves right now, or already said in the comment section, why would we trade away our captain for a first round pick? But this is a trade that would have to happen before the deadline in my eyes, because if you go out, get a first round pick for Brad Marchand, which is probably a little bit of an overpay in my mind, I wouldn't go out and spend a first round pick on Brad Marchand, but who knows, some of you guys in the comment section might, so I think that if you go out, get this first round pick. This is a pick that is going to be very valuable for you at the deadline, where you can go out and get the needs that you want, because maybe Nashville doesn't have anything in return that the Boston Bruins could need, but they could go out, use this first round pick, and get some center depth, which is what they're really crying out for. So if you can go out, trade a 36-year-old Marchand, and go out, maybe get you a 26, 27-year-old center to just increase that center depth, I think that would make the Boston Bruins a better team overall than just sticking around with a 36 Marchand who's probably going to retire in 2 years. What do you think, Darius?
Yeah, I think that's probably the move there. And for the Boston Bruins, like, if you want to re-sign him, you can at the end of the day. Like, I mean, when it comes to the offseason, even if you trade him away, then you get an asset in return, right? Something that you could probably use, like a first round pick. You don't even have to use that pick to draft somebody. You could flip that for somebody else if you really want to stay competitive, right? But that being said, if you really want to, you flip Marchand to another team. He goes on a little bit of a playoff run this year, and then, not saying that the Bruins won't make the playoffs, but it's looking tough, right? The division is a little bit tough, and they're not playing fantastic so far this year. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. And you can always re-sign him, because again, he's probably going to retire soon. It would be a lesser contract than what he's making right now, and shorter term, obviously. So I think he can always come back. But yeah, I think it might be good asset management if the Bruins look like they're, going to stumble into the playoffs or miss the playoffs as well.
Yeah, definitely. We want to hear your guys' thoughts down below, Bruins fans. What do you think? I know it'll be a tough pill to swallow seeing your boy Brad Marchand go here, but would you trade him? Do you want to keep him? Let us know down below. We love reading all your guys' comments. And if you enjoyed this one, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road for 7,000 subscribers. I believe we're like under 200 subscribers away, which is absolutely crazy. Appreciate all the support you guys have been showing us here. If you want to check out a video we did yesterday, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Darius. We'll catch you in the next one.